to do host for this panel session that we put the entitled, let me read a little bit, Politics and Representation of National Identity in Folk Performance. Actually, to talk about national identity in the era of post-colonial is very questionable for, and even the building ASEAN community for us, national identity not just represent your passport. Hello. So through the cultural interaction, I believe that from the very first day of the conference until now, you see a lot of the statement of cultural identity, and it doesn't mean you belong to Thailand because you born in this country alone, but you grow up in the cultural environment, and somehow you can restrain your race or your origin. I myself am not Thai, I am Mon, and to be part of ASEAN community doesn't make any sense to me at all because my country never exists in the map of ASEAN. So we give example of the Chinese people who eventually you know the history that they migrated from their mainland South China to this part of the world, Southeast Asia, and they became one of the strongest community in Southeast Asia. They continuously perform their tradition, their culture, and they mingle with local people, indigenous people of Southeast Asia. Yesterday, very interesting example from our Singapore delegate who adapt the Indonesia literature to his Hokkien opera, and many other interesting issue that occurs in this conference. So we very fortunate to have three distinguished guests, friends, relative, brother, sister from ASEAN community who share their strong background on Chinese identity in the conference. Apologize for the sequence. At first, we try to construct the archaeology and historical thought for the Chinese immigrant who established their staying in Southeast Asia from our Filipino friends, but due to the technology problem, so we have to switch to the second one, which very interesting also, how the Chinese lion and dragon play their power in Malaysia. So welcome back to the land of, oh, is it already? You can. Okay, he really want to confirm his status because he really love to give you the idea of through the archaeology thought, the historical thought, how can you make understanding of Chinese identity in ASEAN. So Dr. Arsenio Nicolas, Ajahn Arsenio from the College of Music Mahasarakram, he is ethnomusicologist, historian and archaeologist, and he will investigate Chinese music in the Philippines, history and contemporary practice. And I hope your energy come back with your 15 minutes presentation. Please give warm welcome to อาจารย์ Arsenio Nicolas.
Yes, this is actually this is not part of my research, but accidentally I came across a Chinese funeral in Manila while I was walking in downtown, and I followed the music and I hopped into the jeepney, and the musicians were there, and I came to know that they were my old friends, and this was in 2008. So from then on, I got invited. I told them, "Can I see your performances?" So for 1 year, I followed the groups performing Kao Ka, which is a Fukien opera in Manila, and I got to connect again with former musicians of Nangwan and Lam Im, where it was taught at the University of the Philippines way back in the 1960s. So this is the result of that 1 year of following, visiting about 20 to 30 temples in Manila, Taoist, Buddhist, Buddhist temples, and cemeteries. So let me go straight to the presentation. Wickberg is a scholar who wrote on the Philippines and the Chinese in the Philippines, and he divided the migration of the Chinese into two routes. One is the downward route inland from China to here, where we are. And then the other one is the maritime route. And he has 4 periods there, one from the 16th century to the present. The first period of migration came about during the maritime trade period and brought new migrants to Japan, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, Malaya, Singapore, Indonesia, and the Philippines. Speakers of the Hokkien language from around the Fujian trading port of Guangzhou and Shangzhou were the earliest, and Techo speakers from the Chaozhou region of Guangdong and Cantonese from Canton also began to settle in Southeast Asia. The Techo, now in Thailand, found their way to Cholon, also in South Vietnam. But in terms of music, I have 3 historical lineages to trace the Chinese music in the Philippines. The first are 3 archaeological sites where we have flat gongs. The 10th century flat gong in Tanjung Simpang in Borneo. And here you have, this is the name of probably the trader, Guo. This was translated for me by a scholar from ICL Singapore. And you notice that these marks on the old flat gongs are still present today in many gongs, not only on flat gongs, but also on bossed gongs. And the 13th century flat gong in Jambi has an inscription. You see this inscription here, and this is the transcription. And the term Tongluo is already mentioned, that this gong is called Tongluo. So the 3 early sites of flat gongs along the coast of island Southeast Asia are precursors to the appearance of flat gongs on Luzon during the Spanish colonial period, thereafter named Gangsa, derived from the Sanskrit term Kangsa, and which are called today by the northern Luzon peoples, and you will see the performance tonight. This is the Gangsa Tupaya of the Kalinga. Mr. Benny Sokhong is here. This is his group. This is taken in his village. So the second lineage stems from the first, with the use of the familiar flat gong that accompanied lion and dragon dances. The Chinese term is also known, the Chinese term is called luo, but Filipino players who do not speak any Fukien or Mandarin refer to the flat gongs as tong tong. Okay. So here is a kind of etymology, not really an etymology. The Sanskrit Old Javanese term, the Sanskrit term Kangsa becomes Gangsa in Old Javanese and Old Balinese, which is about recorded in 8th to 9th century inscriptions. And of course, the Chinese term Tunglo is 13th century. And by the 17th century, the Tagalog terms Paiyak and Palay appears in dictionaries. And by the 16th century, we have Spanish documents already documenting the term gangsa in northern Luzon. And other groups call it kangsa or changsa. And today in Manila, the lion dance is called the flat gongs is called tong tong. The third lineage comes from the Spanish documents saying there were theatrical performances in the 17th century in the Parian. This is the 17th century map of the Parian. The Parian is the Chinese settlement here. And this is the Spanish fort in Intramuros, which you still see today. But this is no longer here. It has moved to this section, the Tondo Binondo area. And this is where now I did my fieldwork in this area. So I'll just run through some descriptions from the Spanish documents that tell us the musical activities of the Chinese from the 17th century. First, of course, you have the flat gongs from the 10th to the 13th century. And then you have, from the Spanish sources of 17th century, you have ringing bells and drums, theatrical plays, promenade music for three mandarins using small kettle drums and other instruments, and gongs, metal bells as trade items. And the Spanish dictionaries that mentioned palai and paiyak as flat gong, and mongmongan as boss gong, and another dictionary only mentions palai and paiyak. So these are already Tagalog terms. And then also by the 17th to the 18th centuries, you still have many references. And this is the first reference on Chinese play, 1639. And 1650, there's a gong in a boat. And 1788, the first description of dragon dance, spitting fire. It's quite a very long description. I will not read it anymore. It just said that the lion was spitting fire, which you still see this today? Spitting fire, lion, dragon dances. It should be something fascinating to see. So how did the flat gongs spread in Southeast Asia? I want to trace this. The first one is probably from India. And there are sources from India, there are sources from China. The sources from India tell us that this is the 13th century, 11th to 13th century Hoysala temple in Karnataka. And here you have on the bas relief 2 flat gongs and 2 drums. And I already showed you the flat gongs that came from China, which dated 10th century. And the third route is something much bigger, which we need to know more about. And this is the whole of Southeast Asia. How did the gongs move about in the whole of Southeast Asia? So here, the black circles are the flat gongs, and the circles with dots are both gongs. This is a distribution from the 9th to the 7th centuries based on artifacts from shipwrecks. Now let me talk about what happened in my fieldwork. The contemporary musical practices in the Chinese temples in Manila, surveyed from 2008-2009, is a musical geography that cuts across many boundaries of religious systems, temple structures, and musical groups. Taoist and Buddhist temples, as well as Catholic churches, are situated in one large area that was the old Manila on the northern side of the Pasig River, which was the site also of the old Parian from the 16th century onwards, and which today has evolved in a large commercial district. One musical form that I'd like to talk about is the Nangguan. It's also called Nangguan, Lamguan, Lam-in, and this is a classic southern Fujian music, which I will show you later on. Musicians in Manila today recall that it was in the 1930s that their parents migrated from Fujian to Manila to look for work. There were few musicians at that time, and only small ensembles were played in the temples. and there were no musical groups yet. So based on my survey, you have these are the musical forms, and these are the Taoist temples, these are wakes and cemeteries. You have dinners, social functions, and Buddhist temples. Kaoka is regularly played in Taoist temples, and sometimes in dinners and social events. Longsai is regularly played in Taoist temples, and sometimes selectively in dinners and social functions. The dragon dance is regularly played in Taoist temples, and sometimes in dinners and social functions. The Lamquan, Lamim, Nangguan are selectively played in Taoist temples. But in wakes and ceremonies that are played for members of the Chinese musical group. It's only one member. There's a special lamin that is sang. And finally, there are several instrumental music that the groups play. They're called Samsang Ko, Tuako Che, Ko Pok Che. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with all these terms. So I just transcribe what I hear. And so I cannot provide also the Chinese characters. Today there are 3 music associations that sponsor regular performances or rehearsals. These are held in the association's clubhouse. Each clubhouse has a temple altar, a music room, a dining room, meeting rooms, and recreation rooms, which are actually gambling rooms where they play mahjong and cards. Each association has a weekly meeting where musicians come to play. These days are scheduled separately for each group, so that all the musicians can visit this club several times in a week. Over time, the number of musicians vary as new immigrants from Fujian arrive, play with a group, and after some time when their business activities are in full operation, they don't participate anymore. The music groups are connected now with groups from Fujian, Taiwan, Vietnam, Hong Kong, Jakarta, Malaysia, and Singapore, and they hold regular festivals in the capitals of these countries. I attended one in 2010, and the music program is quite very varied. You have the traditional Nangguan music, and after that, they play the popular tunes from Taiwan and Hong Kong and China. And this is one of the, this is a big group from different countries. This is my group from Kong Hong Sha, where this is the old group, one of the best groups in Manila. This is the Lam-im group in rehearsal. And this is a Lam-im performance in a Taoist temple. So it can be performed in the Taoist temple. Another type in a Taoist temple. Another type of Lam-im is the funeral song, which is called Sam Chan Chu, which literally means 3 dead wine. And this is very touching. I was very touched by the singing of my friends that time, because he literally almost cried because the person who died was close to the group. You offer wine. It's an imported wine, Johnny Walker. And this is the picture. So they play in, this is in Funeraria Pass in Araneta Avenue. Some are in Barong Tagalog, some are in the Chinese white shirt, and they wear a red sash. And this man is an excellent Nangguan singer. At that time, I didn't have my video. I just had my camera, so I could not record. This is a funeral music in a Chinese cemetery, a very small ensemble. And then Lam-im or Nangguan is also played in Kaoka opera. This is a scene in one of Taoist temples in Manila. Here, you see it's Chinese, and that's why she can sing Lam-im. And this is the instruments, the musical ensembles that accompanies Kaoka. And this is a picture of 2 generations of Kaoka artists. these two in the middle are Chinese teachers, and these are the new Filipino performers. One fascinating thing about this is they memorized the Romanesque texts of Hokkien Kauka by Filipino actors, and they're written this way. So, but they don't understand, just like what is found here in Thailand now. And this is the opening scene of Kauka performance. All right, in conclusion, I would like to present to you a broader view of this research. Here you have Buddhist temples and second Taoist temples. This is the Sangguan temple in Manila. You have a drum and a bell. And this is the chanting where the whole congregation walk around the temple. So you have all these four musical forms integrated into all these temple systems in Manila. And they mix together because the musicians are connected with different musical groups. Moving to Thailand, I've been doing some work in Udon Thani and with my student there, and knew the Techo opera here has been performing in Mahasarkam every year. So I had the occasion to watch the performances there. So there is a fourth lineage that is emerging today. And it is because of the recent influx of Chinese workers into Southeast Asia and to many other parts of the world. And this is mostly felt in the southern borders of China. From Myanmar to Thailand to Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, you have millions of Chinese settling here. And recently there was an article in Bali that a Chinese contractor has garnered a contract to build something I forgot. And my question is, will they be playing Chinese music? Will the new generation of Chinese migrants here play their own music again? So this will be a very interesting research topic in the future if you follow what's happening now. And I'd like to close my presentation with these two beautiful pictures. I'm sure you know this picture very well. The Princess Chulaborn plays Gusheng. She's an excellent musician. And we were contemporaries at Cornell in 2001, but we never met each other there. And of course, recently, Chulalongkorn honored Princess Sirindorn with a presentation of Techo opera, and I found this on the internet.
Thank you so much, Ajahn Arsenio Nicolas, who not just introduced the settlement of Chinese community in the Philippines, but he also connect to the mainland of Southeast Asia and focus Thailand. So we can do the linkage, connect to his knowledge of Chinese music things later on.